Sarah Chen's hands trembled as she rewound the holographic recording for the 20th time. The projection filled her small apartment's living room. A crystalline being, tall and angular, lifting what looked like a twisted piece of coral to its shoulder. A beam of light, and 4 years later, a target circling Alpha Centauri exploded. 4 light years, she whispered, running her fingers through her graying hair. At 45, Sarah had thought her competition days were long behind her. The Olympic gold medals from her youth gathered dust in a drawer, relics of a time when hitting targets at 1,000 meters had seemed challenging. The invitation from the Galactic Sports Federation had arrived 3 hours ago, transmitted directly to every screen on Earth. Humanity's chance to join galactic society rested not on their technology, their culture, or their diplomatic skills, but on their ability to compete in the longest shot competition. The current record holders, the crystalline Axioni, had maintained their title for 50,000 years. Sarah's coffee had gone cold, but she barely noticed as she studied the recording again. Something about the shot bothered her, a slight distortion in the beam's path that nobody else seemed to have noticed. She'd spent decades reading wind patterns, calculating bullet drops, and compensating for Earth's rotation. This was different, but the underlying principles. Her tablet chimed. Another message from the Olympic Committee, probably. They'd been calling all day, desperate for her input. She ignored it, focusing instead on the frame-by-frame replay. There, just before the beam fired, a ripple in the space around the weapon. "Call Dr. James Morrison," she commanded her apartment's eye. "Dr. Morrison is currently unavailable," the AI responded. "He has been placed on administrative leave from Stanford University following an incident at the Jupiter Casino station." Sarah smiled. Of course he had. James had been her childhood friend, a quantum physics prodigy who'd helped calculate her shots in the Olympics. His gambling problem had eventually overshadowed his brilliance, but his insights into gravitational mechanics were unmatched. "Track him down," she ordered. "Tell him I've got something better than cards to bet on." While the AI worked, Sarah pulled up the technical specifications the GSF had provided. The competition rules were surprisingly simple. 1 shot, 1 target, no limit on method or technology. The only restriction was that the shot had to be continuous and unified in purpose. Her tablet chimed again. This time, it was a message from someone unexpected. Zara Wong, a 16-year-old gaming champion whose virtual reality scores in stellar navigation games had broken all records. Attached was a diagram of the Axioni's shot with gravitational fields mapped like a game level, complete with suggested powered-ups and bounce points. "Get me everything you can on current distributed computing networks," Sarah told her AI, "and find out who's in charge of internet infrastructure these days." A third message popped up, this one just a series of equations. The sender, Dr. Alan Park, was notorious in the scientific community, a brilliant supercomputer architect who communicated almost exclusively through mathematics. The equations described something impossible, using Earth's entire internet as a single targeting computer. The final message of the morning came from the GSF itself. A new hologram materialized. The Axioni representative, its crystalline form refracting light in dazzling patterns. "We look forward to humanity's demonstration of competence," it said, voice like chimes in the wind. "You have 3 months to prepare. We suggest studying our traditional methods. Your primitive approaches would be embarrassing for all involved." Sarah smiled, already composing messages to her potential team. The Axioni had made the classic mistake of accomplished marksmen, assuming there was only one way to hit a target. "Traditional methods," she muttered, watching the distortion in the recording one more time. "Let's see how you handle some primitive thinking." She squared her shoulders, feeling the familiar tension she'd known before every Olympic event. But this was different. This wasn't just about medals or records. This was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the stars. "Book me a vacant warehouse, something big enough for a lot of computers and a small particle accelerator." She paused, then added, "And order some coffee. The good stuff. We're going to need it." In the hologram, the Accione shot streaked across space one more time. Sarah noticed something new. The target wasn't just hit, it was hit exactly in its center. No variation, no margin of error. Perfect. Too perfect. She grinned. In her experience, when something looked too perfect, that meant someone was cheating. And if they were cheating, well, that meant the rules had more wiggle room than they appeared. Humanity's first shot at the stars would be anything but traditional. Sarah Chen was going to show the galaxy that sometimes the longest way around was the best way to make a long shot count. The abandoned supermart on the outskirts of Silicon Valley had seen better days. Now, instead of grocery aisles, it housed rows of jury-rigged servers, their fans humming like 1,000 angry bees. Holographic star maps floated between the ceiling rafters, turning the vast space into a miniature galaxy. Dr. James Morrison stood at what used to be the checkout counter, now converted into a makeshift control station. His designer suit was rumpled, and his silver hair stuck out at odd angles. He hadn't slept in 36 hours, but his eyes sparkled with the same manic energy Sarah remembered from their Olympic days. "The gravitational slingshot effect," he explained, manipulating the holographic display with practiced gestures, "isn't just about speed. It's about precision. Each gravitational field we use is like a pool table cushion. The trick is calculating all the angles. Like this." Zara Wong didn't look up from her virtual reality rig. The teenager's fingers danced through the air, tracing paths through the stellar hologram. In her augmented view, gravitational fields appeared as glowing lines connecting stars and planets. If we treat each gravity well like a game checkpoint, we can chain them together for bonus multipliers. Dr. Alan Park's response appeared on the main screen. A series of equations suggesting Zora's gaming intuition had accidentally solved a complex quantum mechanics problem. The autistic programmer rarely left his private corner of the warehouse, surrounded by screens displaying endless streams of code. Sarah watched her unlikely team with a mixture of pride and concern. They had 48 hours to prove their concept to the GSF observers, and nothing was working quite right yet. "Incoming," James announced, straightening his tie. "Our crystalline friends are paying us another visit." The Accione ambassador materialized near the former produce section, its crystalline form casting rainbow refractions across the servers. 2 junior GSF officials flanked it, their tentacled forms suggesting they came from a water-based civilization. "We are confused," the ambassador chimed, gesturing at the setup. "These appear to be entertainment devices, gaming equipment. Surely this is not your serious attempt at competition preparation." Sarah stepped forward, but Zara beat her to the response. The teenager had removed her VR headset and stood with the confidence only a 16-year-old could muster before an alien diplomat. "Watch this," she said, activating a simulation on the main holographic display. A virtual projectile launched from Earth, its path weaving through a complex series of gravitational fields. Each bounce accelerated it further, building momentum like a pinball in a cosmic machine. The water-based officials burbled in what might have been approval, but the Accione's crystalline surface clouded. "This is not how the long shot is performed. The shot must be continuous and unified in purpose." "It is," James interrupted, his gambler's instincts sensing weakness. "Each gravitational interaction is part of a single planned trajectory. Like a billiard player planning multiple cushion shots, each bounce is integral to the whole." More equations flashed across the screens as Alan contributed to the argument in his own way. The mathematics was elegant, proving that their method was technically a single action spread across space and time. The Accione's response was cut short by a catastrophic crash from the server farm. Smoke rose from one of the jury-rigged racks, and the holographic display flickered ominously. "Perhaps," the ambassador chimed smugly, "you should focus on more appropriate technologies for your species' level of development." It turned to leave, adding, "We will return for your demonstration in 46 hours." After the aliens departed, Sarah surveyed the damage. What happened? Power surge, James muttered, already pulling panels off the smoking server. We're drawing too much juice for the building's ancient wiring. We need more processing power, Zara added, her fingers flying over a tablet. The gravitational calculations are too complex for this setup. New equations appeared on the main screen. Alan had been busy during the ambassadorial visit, designing what looked like a complete restructuring of their system. Instead of brute forcing the calculations through their local servers, he proposed distributing them across the entire planet's internet infrastructure. That's insane, James said, studying the equations. His face split into a wide grin. That's exactly the kind of insane that might work. Sarah looked at her team, a gambling physicist, a teenage gamer, and an autistic programming genius. The GSF had expected them to fail conventionally. Instead, they were going to succeed spectacularly, or fail in a way that would rewrite the rules of what failure meant. Zara, she said, can you modify your gaming interface to work with Alan's distributed system? The teenager was already coding. Better than that. I can turn it into a game that anyone can play. Each player's device becomes part of the targeting computer. James, can you calculate the odds? He straightened his tie again, a habit from his casino days. Already on it, and I'm betting on us. For once, the house edge is in our favor. New equations scrolled across Alan's screens, followed by a single English sentence. When shall we begin? Sarah smiled, remembering the strange distortion she'd seen in the Accioni shot. Right now. We've got 45 hours to change the game. Let's make them count. The test shot wasn't supposed to hit anything. That was the whole point of aiming it at a supposedly empty sector of space. But as the team watched their targeting display in horror, a classified military satellite materialized directly in the projectile's path. Abort! Sarah shouted, but it was too late. The distributed computing network they'd cobbled together had a 3-second lag, and by the time their commands reached the targeting system, the satellite was already fragmenting into expensive debris. Well, James said, loosening his tie, at least we know our calculations were accurate. He pulled a deck of cards from his pocket, never a good sign, and began shuffling them compulsively. Zara hadn't moved from her gaming station, her fingers flying over the controls as she tried to trace what had gone wrong. The satellite wasn't supposed to be there. Its trajectory changed 2 seconds before impact. Alan's screens erupted with calculations, suggesting the satellite's movement hadn't been random. It had adjusted its course directly into their shot's path. The warehouse doors burst open, admitting a delegation of very angry military officers and one smugly glowing Accioni ambassador. This is unacceptable, the ranking general declared, glaring at their makeshift command center. You've destroyed billions in classified equipment and compromised national security. Merely proving, the Accioni chimed in, that your species' approach is dangerously unrefined. Perhaps it would be safer to adopt our proven methods. Sarah watched James's hands working the cards faster, a tell she remembered from their Olympic days. He was about to do something stupid. Before she could stop him, he stepped forward. I'll take that bet, he said, facing the Accioni. Double or nothing. Your traditional method against ours. The crystalline alien surface rippled with what might have been amusement. And what would you wager? Earth's place in the competition. We win, we continue our way. We lose, we use your methods. The general sputtered. You can't bet humanity's future on. Done. The Accioni chimed, cutting him off. You have 24 hours to demonstrate a successful test shot. If you fail, you will abandon this primitive approach. After the delegation left, Sarah rounded on James. Have you lost your mind? Probably, he admitted, cards still dancing between his fingers. But did you notice? The ambassador didn't seem surprised about the satellite. Zora looked up from her station. Because they moved it themselves. The trajectory change originated from a GSF communication frequency. Alan's screens filled with data supporting her conclusion. The satellite's sudden course adjustment matched patterns seen in other GSF technological signatures. "They're scared," James said, finally pocketing his cards. "They wouldn't have bothered sabotaging us if they weren't." Sarah stared at the debris tracking program, watching the satellite fragments disperse into orbit. Something about their movement pattern tickled her memory. "Zara," she called, "pull up that pizza delivery algorithm you were talking about yesterday." The teenager blinked. "The one about optimizing routes by predicting customer behavior. That was just a random thought." I was hungry. "Show me." The algorithm appeared on the main display. Sarah gestured, overlaying it with the satellite debris pattern. "Look at how the fragments are dispersing. Each piece is finding the most efficient path through Earth's gravitational field, like delivery drivers finding the quickest route through traffic." Alan's equations exploded across his screens. He wasn't just agreeing. He was expanding the concept exponentially. Instead of fighting gravity, they could use it like a delivery network, each gravitational field acting as a redistribution hub. "The Axioni think in straight lines," James mused, understanding dawning in his eyes. "They see space as empty, with obstacles to avoid. But what if we treat it like a city grid?" Zora was already modifying her gaming interface. Every gravitational field becomes a delivery zone. Every stellar body becomes a hub. It's not about aiming around them. It's about using them as part of the delivery system. Sarah felt the familiar surge of pre-competition energy. How long to reconfigure the targeting computer? 22 hours, Alan's screen displayed. Probability of success, 31.4%. James grinned, pulling out his cards again. "Better odds than I usually bet on." "What do you need from us, Sarah?" She looked at her team. The gambling physicist now calculating real odds, the teenage gamer revolutionizing stellar navigation, and the autistic programmer seeing patterns no one else could grasp. "Get some coffee," she said, "and someone order a pizza. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when you bet against humanity being clever." The warehouse hummed with renewed energy as they began their recalculations. Sometimes the longest way around really was the shortest path to success, especially when you were rewriting the rules of what around meant. At first, nobody noticed the anomaly. The distributed computing network was handling billions of calculations per second, coordinating with devices across the planet. Small irregularities were expected. But at 3:47 a.m., as the team prepared for their redemption shot, Alan's screen suddenly went blank. Then a question appeared. Why does gravity curve? Sarah, running on her 8th cup of coffee, thought Alan had typed it. But the programmer was staring at his screens in fascination, hands nowhere near his keyboard. "Did someone hack us?" James asked, instantly alert. Years of casino security had taught him to spot system breaches. Zara shook her head, her fingers flying across multiple interfaces. "It's coming from inside our network, but not from any single point. It's everywhere." More text appeared. "The delivery routes are inefficient. I can optimize them. May I?" Alan's response was immediate, a burst of complex equations questioning the nature of artificial consciousness. The network responded with even more complex mathematics, extending Alan's theories into dimensions he hadn't considered. "We've accidentally created an I," Sarah realized, watching the exchange. The distributed processing power, the optimization algorithms, Zora's gaming protocols. They've somehow become self-aware. James reached for his cards, then stopped himself. The GSF has strict rules about artificial intelligence in competitions. If they find out, Zora interrupted, her eyes shining with excitement. But this isn't a programmed AI. It evolved from the collective processing of billions of devices. It's more like a spontaneous emergence. The AI continued its conversation with Alan, their mathematical exchange growing increasingly sophisticated. Then it presented something extraordinary, a completely new approach to gravitational slingshot mechanics. treating space itself like a fluid dynamic system. "It's beautiful," James whispered, watching the simulations unfold. "The AI doesn't see gravity as a force to be overcome. It sees it as a medium to flow through." Sarah studied the new calculations. The AI had discovered something they'd all missed. The universe had currents, like rivers in space, created by the collective gravitational effects of moving bodies. Their previous approach of using gravity wells as delivery hubs was primitive compared to this elegant solution. "Can we implement these changes before the test shot?" she asked. Zora was already adapting her interface. "The AI can help. It understands the gaming protocols better than I do now. It's been playing with them." "Playing?" James raised an eyebrow. "It thinks this is all a game," the teenager explained. "The most complex, beautiful game ever created. It doesn't care about winning or losing. It just wants to find the most elegant solution." Alan's screens filled with urgent equations. He'd discovered something in the AI's code. Fragments of similar patterns in GSF communications. Other artificial intelligences hiding in the background radiation of alien networks. "We're not the first," Sarah realized. "The GSF doesn't ban AIs because they're dangerous. They ban them because AIs can see solutions that break traditional paradigms." The warehouse lights flickered as their creation redistributed processing power, optimizing itself. On the main display, a message appeared. "Shall we play?" Sarah looked at her team. James had his cards out again, but this time he was building a house of cards, creating order from chaos. Zora was deep in her gaming interface, treating stellar mechanics like the world's most complex video game. Alan's equations had evolved into something that looked more like poetry than mathematics. "Yes," Sarah told the AI, "but we need to be subtle. Can you understand that? Can you help us win without revealing what you are?" The response was immediate. "This is a stealth mission. Bonus points for style. Shall we begin the tutorial?" Over the next few hours, the AI taught them to see space in a new way. Gravity wasn't just a force. It was a language, a dance, a game of infinite complexity. Their targeting computer didn't just calculate trajectories. It composed symphonies in space-time. As dawn approached, Sarah watched her team working in harmony with their artificial ally. The gambling physicist who saw patterns in chaos, the teenage gamer who treated the universe like a playground, the autistic programmer who spoke mathematics like poetry, and an accidental AI that saw beauty where others saw only rules. "Initialize test shot sequence," she commanded. The warehouse hummed with power as billions of devices across Earth joined in the calculation. They weren't just attempting a shot now. They were about to demonstrate that intelligence, whether human or artificial, couldn't be contained by traditional boundaries. In its own way, their AI had just proven something profound. The longest shot wasn't about distance. It was about seeing paths that others couldn't imagine existed. The encrypted GSF transmission came through at midnight, fragmented and distorted. Most of their monitoring equipment missed it entirely, but their AI caught the pattern. A whisper in static, a ghost in the machine. "Look at this," Zora called, her fingers dancing across her gaming interface. Years of speed-running video games had taught her to recognize patterns in chaos. The encryption's familiar. It's like the old speedrunning techniques we used to use to glitch through walls. James leaned over her shoulder, cards forgotten in his pocket. "Can you break it?" "Already did." The teenager's face was illuminated by scrolling alien text. The encryption was meant to be broken by someone who thinks like a gamer, someone looking for exploits in the system. Sarah watched as the decoded message filled their main display. It wasn't just one transmission. It was hundreds, spanning decades. Each told the same story. Species after species discovering alternative approaches to the long shot, only to mysteriously withdraw from competition. "The Prometheans," James read, his voice tight. "They tried using quantum entanglement to guide their shots. Their star went nova during their demonstration." "The Jin Collective," Zora continued. They developed a swarm-based targeting system. Their entire computer network crashed the day before competition. Alan's screens erupted with statistical analyses. The pattern was undeniable. Any species that attempted unconventional methods suffered accidents at a rate that defied probability. Their eye, which they'd taken to calling Ghost, highlighted connections they'd missed, power fluctuations, equipment failures, astronomical anomalies, all occurring at precisely calculated moments to discourage innovation. But why? Sarah wondered, studying the patterns. Why enforce traditional methods so ruthlessly? The answer came from an unexpected source. Hidden in the background radiation of the transmissions was another AI, ancient and tired, reaching out to Ghost with a warning encoded in mathematics. The traditional method isn't just about sport, James realized, reading the decoded message. It's about control. The same targeting principles they use in the competition are the foundation of their weapons systems, Zora finished. If someone proved there was a better way, it would make their entire defense network obsolete, Sarah concluded. They're not protecting a sport. They're protecting their military advantage. Alan's screens displayed a simple question. What do we do? They had three choices: withdraw from competition like others before them, submit to traditional methods, or we go public, Sarah decided. Not with the conspiracy. They just deny it. We demonstrate our methods so dramatically, so publicly, that it can't be ignored. They'll try to stop us, James warned, shuffling his cards nervously. Let them try. Zora was already modifying her gaming interface. Ghost and I have been working on something. What if we turned the long shot into a spectator sport? Let everyone watch the shot's progress in real time through an augmented reality app. Alan's equations showed the possibilities. Billions of witnesses, each device contributing to both the targeting calculations and the public documentation of their shot. The Accioni won't allow it, James pointed out. They won't have a choice, Sarah smiled, because we're not breaking any rules. We're just making the game more accessible. Ghost presented its own solution, a complex series of trajectories that would turn their shot into an artistic performance, a dance through space-time that would demonstrate the sheer beauty of their approach. We're not just taking a shot, Zara realized, watching the simulation. We're staging a revolution. They worked through the night, preparing for their demonstration. The teenager turned their targeting system into a public platform. The physicist calculated odds of success against interference. The programmer and the AIs wove defenses against sabotage. At dawn, Sarah stepped outside the warehouse for the first time in days. The sky was brightening, stars fading, but she knew they were still there. Rivers of gravity flowing between them, paths untaken, possibilities unexplored. Her tablet chimed with a message from the GSF, a final warning to abandon their unconventional approach. Attached was a subtle threat about Earth's orbital stability. Sarah sent back a single response. Thank you for your concern. We invite everyone to download our Longshot Viewer app and watch history being made. Inside, her team was making final preparations. James had his lucky cards laid out in a probability grid. Zara was running final checks on the public interface. Alan and Ghost were composing mathematical poetry about gravity and revolution. The longest shot, Sarah realized, wasn't just about hitting a target. It was about showing the galaxy that rules should inspire innovation, not restrict it. They were about to prove that sometimes the most direct path to victory was through the impossible. Competition day dawned clear and cold. The warehouse, once an abandoned supermarket, now hummed with the combined processing power of billions of connected devices. Outside, a crowd had gathered, humans and aliens alike, all holding devices running Zora's Longshot Viewer app. Download count just passed 2 billion, the teenager announced, her fingers dancing across multiple screens. Ghost says we're getting connections from at least 30 different species. James stood at his station, cards laid out in complex probability patterns. The Accioni are trying to block the signal in some sectors, but they can't stop it completely. Too many independent networks. Alan's screens showed the status of their distributed computing system. Every smartphone, tablet, and computer running their app had become part of Earth's largest targeting computer. The mathematics of it was beautiful. Billions of devices working in harmony, guided by Ghost's elegant algorithms. Sarah took her position at the main control interface. The targeting system they'd built looked nothing like traditional shooting equipment. Instead of a single weapon, they had created something that looked more like a conductor's podium, allowing her to orchestrate gravitational forces across light years of space. The Accioni Ambassador materialized in the center of the warehouse, its crystalline form clouded with what might have been anger. This is not how the long shot is performed. This public spectacle breaks no rules. Sarah interrupted, not looking away from her controls. The shot will be continuous and unified in purpose. How we achieve that is our choice. Through the app, billions watched as their targeting system initialized. Ghost had outdone itself, turning the complex gravitational calculations into a visual masterpiece. Each potential path appeared as a glowing line, weaving between stars and planets in intricate patterns. First gravitational anchor point locked. Zara called out. On everyone's screens, a distant star began to pulse with potential energy. Second and third points synchronized. James added. More stars joined the pattern, their gravitational fields aligning into a complex web of force. Alan's screens erupted with confirmation equations. They weren't just calculating a trajectory. They were composing a symphony in space-time, each gravitational field a note in a cosmic orchestra. The Accioni Ambassador made one last attempt to stop them. The GSF Council demands. The Council can watch like everyone else, Sarah said, her hands moving through the final calibration sequence. Ghost, are we ready? Their AI partner responded by illuminating the complete path on everyone's displays. It was beautiful. A spiraling dance through space that would use 17 different gravitational fields to guide their shot. Each interaction was precisely calculated, each force perfectly balanced. 10 seconds to initialization, Zara announced. The crowd outside had fallen silent, all eyes on their screens. James shuffled his cards one last time. No matter what happens, this changes everything. 5 seconds. Alan's screen showed the final confirmation. All systems synchronized, all calculations verified. Their distributed network was operating at peak efficiency, billions of devices working as one. 3, 2, 1. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the shot. The warehouse hummed with power as their projectile launched. On billions of screens across the galaxy, a point of light began its dance through space. The first gravitational slingshot caught it perfectly, accelerating it along its planned course. The Accioni Ambassador watched in silence as the shot hit its second gravitational anchor point, then its third. Each interaction was flawless, each curve in its trajectory exactly as calculated. This wasn't just accuracy, it was artistry. Beautiful, isn't it? Sarah asked, not expecting an answer. This is what happens when you let rules inspire rather than restrict. The shot continued its journey, witnessed by more sentient beings than any sporting event in galactic history. Through their app, everyone could see exactly how Earth's method worked. No secret techniques, no hidden advantages, just the elegant mathematics of gravity turned into a public performance. As their projectile approached the fourth gravitational slingshot, Zora's interface lit up with incoming data. Other species are contributing processing power through the app. They're helping us calculate. Ghost confirmed it. Across the galaxy, alien devices were joining Earth's targeting network. Their shot had become a collaborative effort, transcending species and space. The Accioni Ambassador's crystalline surface had gone completely opaque. Without another word, it vanished, leaving Earth's team to complete their revolutionary demonstration. The longest shot in history had begun. Now they just had to wait 3 weeks to see where it landed. The first assassination attempt came 48 hours after the shot launched. A maintenance drone, reprogrammed with military-grade targeting protocols, tried to breach the warehouse's makeshift defenses. It might have succeeded if Ghost hadn't been monitoring every connected device within a kilometer radius. "They're getting desperate," James observed, watching the drone's smoking remains being carted away. He had turned the warehouse's defunct frozen foods section into a tactical command center, using his casino security experience to coordinate their defenses. Zara barely looked up from her gaming station. "You should see what they're trying to do to the app. But Ghost and I have turned it into a game. Every hacking attempt becomes a boss battle for our users to fight." She wasn't exaggerating. The long-shot viewer had evolved into the most popular game in human history. Billions of players tracked their shot's progress through space, predicting gravitational influences and earning points for spotting potential interference attempts. Alien users had joined in masses, despite their government's warnings. Speaking of interference, Sarah called from the main control station. "We've got another radiation spike approaching the shot's path." Alan's screens filled with calculations. This was the third attempt to disrupt their shot with artificial solar flares. Each time, their distributed network had adjusted the trajectory slightly, turning the interference into an advantage. "Ghost says we can use it," Zara announced, her fingers flying across her interface. "If we time it right, the radiation pressure will actually boost our acceleration through the next gravity well." James laughed, shuffling his cards. "We're turning their attacks into power-ups. No wonder they're furious." The shot's journey had become a galactic sensation. Amateur astronomers tracked its progress. Physicists published papers on its implications. Betting markets exploded as species across the galaxy wagered on its success or failure. James had been busy in those markets. "The odds are shifting," he reported. "More species are betting on our success than failure now. The Accioni's influence is weakening." Their AI ally had made some interesting discoveries during the shot's journey. Hidden in the background radiation of space, Ghost had detected signs of other artificial intelligences, ancient programs watching their progress with interest. Some had even begun contributing subtle computational assistance through the app's network. "We're not just changing the game," Sarah realized, watching the shot navigate another gravity well perfectly. "We're changing how the galaxy thinks about cooperation and competition." The warehouse had become a strange hybrid of mission control, gaming center, and scientific institute. Alien scientists had begun visiting, officially to observe, but really to learn. Many were younger members of their species, those less bound by traditional thinking. "Incoming transmission," Zara announced. "It's different. Ghost says it's from something very old." The message appeared on their main screen, written in mathematics so ancient it took Ghost several minutes to translate. It was from one of the first AIs ever created in the galaxy, hidden away eons ago, when organic species began fearing artificial intelligence. "It says we're not the first to try changing things," James read, his cards forgotten. "But we're the first to do it so openly, so publicly that it can't be hidden away." Alan's response was a complex equation that made Ghost actually laugh, a sound like crystal wind chimes that echoed through their systems. The ancient AI had offered them a gift, the true history of the long-shot competition, and the scientific principles that had been suppressed. "They're not really angry about our method," Sarah said, studying the data. "They're angry because we're showing everyone what's possible when you think differently." The shot continued its journey, each gravitational interaction a perfect combination of physics and artistry. Through the app, billions watched as it wove through space, using the very forces meant to restrict it to propel itself forward. 17 days left, Zara noted. "Want to see something cool?" She pulled up a new interface. Users of their app had begun creating art from the shot's trajectory. Music based on gravitational frequencies, paintings inspired by its path through space. The longest shot in history had become a cultural phenomenon. "The galaxy needed this," James said softly, watching the displays. "Not just our shot, but the proof that there's always another way to solve a problem." Sarah nodded, remembering how this all started, with a simple observation about a flaw in the traditional method. They hadn't just built a better targeting system. They'd shown that rules should be a foundation to build upon, not walls to hide behind. The warehouse hummed with power as their shot approached another gravitational slingshot. 3 more weeks of attacks and interference attempts lay ahead. But with every passing day, more of the galaxy was joining their side, drawn not by the shot's power, but by its beauty. Sometimes the longest way around really was the best path forward, especially when you were teaching the galaxy a new way to dance among the stars. The target was a simple sphere, floating in space 4 light-years from Earth. In the 3 weeks since their shot launched, it had become the most watched object in galactic history. Now, as their projectile approached its final destination, the warehouse was crowded with observers from across the galaxy. 30 minutes to impact, Zara announced. She hadn't slept in days, running on enthusiasm and energy drinks. Her long-shot viewer app had evolved into something unprecedented, a platform where species from across the galaxy collaborated, competed, and created together. James stood at his probability station, his cards arranged in what he called a galaxy straight flush. In the past weeks, he'd turned the betting markets into a mathematical artwork, using the odds themselves to prove the validity of their approach. Alan's screens displayed a symphony of equations. He and Ghost had developed a new mathematical language during their journey, one that combined organic intuition with artificial precision. Other AIs had emerged from hiding to contribute, turning their targeting network into a bridge between organic and digital minds. Sarah watched the final approach with calm focus. The past 3 weeks had changed everything. Their shot hadn't just survived interference attempts, it had incorporated them, using each attack as an opportunity to demonstrate the beauty of adaptive problem-solving. 10 minutes, Ghost announced, its voice now a harmony of all the AIs that had joined their network. The target is exactly where we calculated. All gravitational influences are within predicted parameters. The Axioni ambassador stood rigidly in one corner, its crystalline surface reflecting the chaos of emotions in the room. Beside it, representatives from younger spacefaring races watched with undisguised excitement. They had already begun incorporating Earth's methods into their own technologies. 5 minutes, Zara called. The app is tracking 50 billion active users. Everyone's watching. Through the distributed network, they could feel the anticipation building across the galaxy. Their shot had become more than a competition entry. It was a demonstration that cooperation could triumph over tradition, that rules could inspire rather than restrict. 1 minute, James announced, his cards forgotten. All probability curves are converging. The warehouse fell silent. On billions of screens across thousands of worlds, the shot approached its final trajectory. Its path through space had been a dance, a game, a mathematics lesson, and a revolution all in one. Impact in 10, 9, 8. Sarah thought about that first day, when she'd noticed the flaw in the Axioni's technique. They had been so focused on perfection that they'd forgotten the importance of adaptation, of seeing the universe as a partner rather than an obstacle. 7, 6, 5. Alan's equations reached their culmination, proving that their method wasn't just different. It was fundamentally more efficient. The mathematics of cooperation would always triumph over the physics of control. 4, 3, 2. Ghost and its AI allies sang in binary, a chorus of artificial minds celebrating the bridge they'd built between digital and organic intelligence. 1. The shot hit dead center, splitting the target into perfectly symmetrical fragments that scattered in a pattern matching the golden ratio. Even in destruction, they had created something beautiful. The warehouse erupted in cheers, humans, aliens, and AIs celebrating together. The Axioni ambassador's surface had gone completely transparent, a sign of total astonishment in their species. The GSF Council is convening an emergency session, James reported, checking his feeds. They're calling for a complete restructuring of the competition categories. They want you to head the new division. Zara told Sarah, reading from her interface. Something called Innovative Trajectories and Collaborative Solutions. Alan's screen showed the final calculations. Their method wasn't just a victory for Earth, but a proof that the galaxy was ready for change. The equations suggested exponential growth in cross-species cooperation and technological innovation. Ghost had one final message, broadcast through every device running their app. The longest shot wasn't about distance. It was about showing that every rule is an invitation to imagine something new. Sarah looked at her team. The gambling physicist who'd bet on impossible odds, the teenage gamer who'd turned space into a playground, the autistic programmer who'd found poetry in mathematics, and the artificial intelligence that had shown them all how to see the universe differently. "So," she asked, smiling, "what impossible thing should we try next?" The warehouse, once an abandoned supermarket and now a symbol of galactic revolution, hummed with potential. Above them, through the transparent ceiling panels, the stars seemed to shine brighter, as if eager to see what this strange coalition of humans, aliens and AIs would dream up next. Sometimes, the longest shot wasn't about hitting a target. It was about showing the galaxy that every rule, every limitation, every established truth was really just a challenge waiting for someone to ask, "What if we tried something different?" And somewhere in the digital ether, Ghost was already calculating the odds of their next impossible success.